Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. Today we're going to do another comparison video between a Generation 1 toy and a modern toy. And this is one I've been wanting to do for a while now. This was one of the new version here was one of the first that I picked up. After being persuaded to do the review for Hunger, this is one of them that I picked up first at one of my local comic stores. We're going to take a look at Octane. Over here on the left, we have the Generation 1 version, as you can see. It's a pretty imposing figure for G1 standards. And he's about par for the course for what you'd expect. And then over here on the right, we have the Titans Return Octone. Even though the instructions list him as Decepticon Octone, why didn't they just make it Octane? I know that they probably can't use the trademark, but they probably could have worked around it by still calling him Decepticon Octane and left it at that, but we're not going to get into that here for this review. But as you can see, clearly the new one just barely dwarfs the original one. It looks more imposing. Now let's take a look a little bit at the original, because I haven't reviewed him yet, and I'm hoping to at some point. It'll probably be next year before I review Octane. As you can see, he's got a pretty massive upper body and very scrawny legs. And the only articulation he had was about in the kneecap ankle area down here. He did have articulation at the elbow and to some degree at the shoulder. Can't move the arms all the way around due to the fact his wings get in the way. Now for our new version, he's got a significant upgrade in articulation, as the arms can move at the shoulders. Again, the wings get in the way, but he does have a joint at the elbow, so he can bend his arms at the elbow. And he also has a swivel at the bicep. So he would basically have what G.I. Joe fans refer to as the swivel arm battle grip. He does have joints here at his hips that does allow you to spread the legs around. So he can do a full splits. And he can also bend his leg at the hip about 90 degrees and bend at the knee about 90 degrees. And I'm starting to sound like Hooded Cobra Commander 788 here. My apologies, Hoodie, if you're watching. Alright, at any rate, Octane was best remembered as a triple changer back in the day. He would become a tanker truck and an airplane. And this new version, the new Titans version, does also pay homage to that. So, let's flip him around into the tanker mode and see some comparisons between them. Unbelievable. You take a look at their oil tanker truck modes, and it's unbelievable how much of a difference there is in between the two toys. I mean, we'll take a look here first at the Generation 1 version, and while it was passable back in the day, it certainly does not hold up very well by comparison, especially with the fact that the arms are obviously hanging out here on the sides. There's no way to hide them. There's no clear signs of a windshield on the front. And let's face it, a fair amount of the trailer is taken up by this removable chrome piece here. So by all extensions and by all rights, this is crap in comparison. I mean, it's what we had to deal with back in the day, and Given the fact that he was the only one of his kind for a while, we kind of had to put up with it. So then now we take a look at this one, and by golly, this thing is imposing. I mean, it is a pain to transform him, I will give it that, but I have had a few months to play with him, so I've gotten kind of used to how to transform him. I like the fact that the tanker does look, the trailer here does look more solid, unlike the original one. This one does look more solid, and it is kind of cute that he does have the ability to mount his guns on the side. Something that the original Octane did not allow. He could not mount any of his weapons on him, and thus that left him very defenseless in his other modes. So this one's a bit of an improvement. It looks somewhat more realistic, while going out of its way to also look not like a regular truck. Again, so they don't have to pay royalties or anything, but he does a better job of hiding the fact that he's obviously a fake. I mean, yeah, there's still some obviousness, like, I mean, you still see some of the pins hanging out here and all that, but he does a better job of hiding it. Well, to an extent. I mean, you can see the wings are kind of hiding here out the back of the truck, but it's not bad. It does a better job of it. And again, the ability to mount the guns on the outside is nice. That means now that this version of Octane is capable of defending himself. If he's out on his own, he can defend himself with his valuable cargo. So that's a nice improvement. Now let's see how well that carries over to the jet modes. Well, they say bigger is better, but that's not necessarily applied well in this mode either for both of them. We'll start by looking at the original. It's made to be just an ordinary giant cargo plane. I mean, even though the arms are still visible in this mode, they are a little less conspicuous on here because they could easily be written off as the intake engines for such a large airplane. But other than that, I mean, we got this section of wheels that are sticking out that you can't hide or do anything with. And of course, the tail fin here, this is a removable part that becomes the robot's shield. But it does do a fairly decent job of conveying a large airplane, or at least a large cargo plane, which was not something we got very often in the Transformers toy line, so this works out in its own way. And it does swoosh pretty good. So now we take a look at this one, the Titan's Return version, and automatically right here in the back, you can notice and see bits of the truck hanging from the back of the plane. So that's a strike against it. That's a major strike against it because they are pretty obvious. But other than that, well, this section here keeps popping out on us here. Get back up there where you're supposed to be. It also, like the G1 version, it does swoosh pretty good one-handed. And again, as a nice added touch, that section sprung out again. Gotta watch where you keep your hands on this thing. He is able to mount the guns on here, so he can defend it. This version can defend himself, so that's a nice improvement. And this translucent purple piece back here, this actually doubles as the cockpit for the little figures. So one of the little guys can hide out in here, and if you can get a second one can sit here and man the turret. Probably a dangerous proposition if you're in the air, but all in all, it's not bad, but I think in this case, I'm going to give more points to the original. The original one conveys the look a little bit better. There's nothing to say that the new one is wrong, because it does fix a fair amount of the problems that the original one had, but it tends to create new ones. So I think in this case, the original one gets more of the nod than the new one, but we can at least give the new one an honorable mention for making a decent attempt. So now we get down to my final thoughts. I like the new version of Octane better than the original. I know that's going to come off as blasphemous, but do hear me out on it. The new one does have the benefits of 30 years of improvement on toy technology. Thus, that gives him the ability to benefit from being able to be posed in more positions than what the original one was able to do. I like the fact as well that the new one comes with the 2 guns, but I will give bonus points to the original for having a shield. That was not something that was very common amongst the Transformer toys, so he does deserve some bonus points for coming with something uniquely his own. That and the fact the original, it also clearly defined this gun as the flamethrower weapon. I could only assume that this one is intended to be that same weapon, but there is no information really that describes their guns, and that I think is an oversight on Hasbro's part to reduce their tech specs to nothing more than a small card that only has 4 bars on it and no real descriptions of anything about them. Especially characters that are probably as forgotten as Octane has been. As for the alternate modes, the new one has the better truck mode, hands down. Again, it also benefits from more years of toy development technology. The original one, that truck mode is terrible. Always has been, always will be. Now for the airplane mode, I'm going to go with the original. It looks a little bit better. The new one just leaves a little too much of the truck's kibble hiding out behind it. Excuse me, that should be down. The new one just leaves too much of the truck kibble hiding out in the open in plain sight. But again, I will give some points towards the new one for at least being able to mount the guns on the outside. So while that may lose a lot of his aerodynamics, Octane can at least defend himself in this mode, whereas the G1 version, obviously he had to travel with other Decepticons to protect him and his valuable cargo. Otherwise, he ran the risk of losing his cargo, or, probably most importantly, losing his life when somebody got a little too trigger happy and nailed all that fuel. But all in all, I do find that the new version is a great homage to the original toy. It does pay the respects to it very well with the color schemes, the way some of the things are positioned on him. It does pay very good homage to the classic toy and is definitely a worthy addition on our shelves. And that concludes my comparison review for Octane. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up here on YouTube. Also, don't forget, hit that subscribe button down below and join up within our robot ranks. Please also share your thoughts of Octane, either the G1 version or the Titans Return version, in the comments section down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I'll catch you all later.